It might be saying to the client, we don't think you should buy this asset because there is a real risk there. Don't be fooled by the numbers because what you can't see will hurt you.
Hi there, I'm Keith Atkinson, and today I'm joined by a guest who's done futures trading in London, corporate bonds in Milan, and a pivot back into construction. And now has co-founded his practice about 14 years ago. Lee Driscoll. Lee, welcome to the Growth Diary.
Thank you, Keith.
So, talk me through where it all began.
Well, originally my uncle was a quantity surveyor back in the day, and I think he still does work a little bit. And I got the idea to get into the construction industry from that and did a degree, passed it sort of through that process, and then we got a job, etc., done the usual things that graduates do, and then after a couple of years decided that I wanted to look at other things and experience other industries and other countries and try and explore opportunities. And I duly sort of went ahead and over a 10-year period sort of had some great experiences in the city of London, in the sort of commercial trading world and abroad doing similar things. And yeah, it was really a great life experience to do something else other than just what you study at university, working in different cultures, different environments, learning new language, different skills, and getting the confidence to connect with people and develop relationships in all different spheres of, commerce. I think put me in good stead for what has come after that. So I always look at it fondly as time very well spent. So yeah, and then eventually when I came back to the UK in 2005, over 20 years ago now, still seems like yesterday, but I then decided in my early 30s, in sort of my second decade at work, that I probably needed to have a more precise plan in my next phase because it was an important one. I almost look at each decade like a chapter in a book. So the 20s were experimental and fun. The 30s a bit more structured with maybe some more end game to it. And that's when I looked at getting back into the construction stroke property industry to carve out a career doing what I originally studied and taking some of the experiences that I'd learned in my 20s into that next phase of my career.
After years at some of the largest, most established firms, you and your co-directors decided to set this up. So what made you decide to do that on your own rather than just continue working for someone else?
I think it was driven by a few factors. One of them, in bigger practices, there's a lot of very good procedures and processes that you learn and management structures that sort of give you some very good ways of working and discipline to do things on various scales. However, with that is a double-edged sword where the red tape and procedures can actually hold you back from doing things more ad hoc and being innovative. And I think in the end, myself and my co-founder decided that it was holding us back and we could probably achieve a lot more doing it our way. And that sort of was one of the drivers really, is to take what we'd learned from various big companies, which helped us form our careers, but actually put our own stamp on how we do it, why we do it, and give a more bespoke service to the clients that wanted to work with us.
And you help your clients across the whole life cycle, see, from acquisition, due diligence, right through to the end of life redevelopment and disposal. So in practice, what does that actually look like?
So most of our client base consists of owners of buildings, landlords, investors, developers who want to do various things with their portfolio at different times of the life cycle. some of the bigger portfolios, pension funds or developers with bigger sort of quantities of buildings in their portfolio, generally at any point, there's quite often a building towards the end of its life cycle that maybe needs redevelopment and knocking down and rebuilding, which is an important phase at the end of a life cycle of a building. There's other buildings that no longer hold value to them and their investment values, and they want to sell it. And then that's when we help them with that process of disposal. And then they quite often, if they're selling, they also want to buy some new stock in that's got potential with asset management and development opportunities to sort of bring a new injection of life into their portfolio. Because of the nature of a lot of our clients, there's always one part of the life cycle of one of their buildings in all different phases. So it makes it quite a varied consultancy role for us because we're involved in the pre-acquisition, the acquisition, the disposal, and the life cycle of the building while it's there, whether it's an asset management move on a building or a lease event where there's an expiry and something needs to be done with a chunk of space within a building, and then we get involved in all of that alongside, I might add, many other advisors. We're not the only advisor. There's a lot of other property advisors that will work alongside to achieve the end result for the client. And from time to time, we do work for occupiers, quite often big household names where a landlord is trying to strike a deal with an occupier, and then they want us to get involved in delivering something that is mutually beneficial for both parties. And then sometimes we'll form new relationships with occupier clients, tenants of buildings.
Yeah.
We've got good insight into what tenants are looking for because of what we do on the other side of the coin. It puts us in a good position to advise both sides of the sector.
You made an interesting point about how the role of gut feel, the human element in high stakes property decisions, you need to have that human instinct when you've got serious money at stake, right? Rather than just using data, sometimes it doesn't do the whole job. So, yeah, how do you feel about that?
I think what it is that there's also with any investment, there's always risk, whether that be equity or a physical commodity like a property. What we do alongside others, because there's always a panel of consultants when one of our clients buys or sells or does anything to a building. What we try and do is assess the risk and try and appraise the likelihood of that risk becoming real or not real, so that the client's making an informed decision and not being too scared by some risks that are maybe not that real. And sometimes we have to get off the fence and say what we really think. And sometimes that might be a negative. It might be saying to the client, we don't think you should buy this asset because there is a real risk there. Don't be fooled by the numbers because what you can't see will hurt you. And we think there is a really big risk. For example, contaminated land on the surface of it, you might be able to build something on it, but removing contaminated waste can cost millions. And sometimes that gut feel, you have to sort of be honest with the client and say what you really, really think, and not just be diplomatic because you think the client or his agents want to buy the building. And sometimes agents will be on my case or on the telephone saying, look, this is a really good deal. I have to say the best advice, but at the same time take a commercial view, because on other occasions the risk might be very small, and it might be a case of saying, look, even if there is a problem, you can deal with it and it's probably going to cost you in the region of X, but that shouldn't stop you buying this asset. So I
Yeah.
think the gut feel thing is more a commercial view,
Yeah.
and having the confidence and experience to tell the client the reality and not be frightened of people challenging that or not liking what they're hearing, because quite often people don't always like what they're hearing, but they'll thank you down the line.
And looking into AI now in your world, it's becoming a big topic in a lot of industries. Construction, typically, it's been sort of an older style industry, not necessarily on the cutting edge of technology. I feel like now they're starting to adopt more and be a bit more tech savvy. You had a clear take on it when we spoke before, is that the data and the research side will come far more efficient. But the physical inspection, the site visits, that's where you still need that human touch. You still need to have a physical person walking around sites on occasion. So how do you feel, about AI coming into the industry right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone looks at things from a selfish point of view and their own job and their own income in the industry, et cetera, et cetera. So different parts of the industry might be more concerned than others with AI and whether it will affect their job. But I think overall, the property market has always been a people's industry from ever since I was 21 and involved in the property industry. It's always involved lots of interaction with, in-person meetings and everything. And even COVID, although it may have changed it for a period, now it's, I would say, back to a degree of normality.
Mm,
And I still think that that will remain. I just think, like many other industries other than construction, it's how you do certain things will change, but what you
mm,
do won't. The end game or the goal won't change. So it just might mean that AI frees up more of our time to do other things better. For example, we won't have to sit there for hours analyzing data or tabulating reports and doing things that can be done in a more structured manner with AI, whereas that might free up more time to look at more opportunities and meet more people and do more deals. So I think the RICS, who regulate us, are taking it quite seriously, and they've brought out a global standard for the use of AI in the industry, which became effective on March the 9th last month. It's definitely got traction, and everyone is taking it very seriously. I just think the ramifications of how it will look for the industry in a year, 2 year, 5 years time are just not quite known yet. And it's
mm,
probably similar in a lot of industries to where the efficiencies lie in any job, and also legal boundaries and compliance, which I think is where AI will test a lot of industries, is how far it can go before there's a big legal case or a big problem where an institutional investor or someone of bigger power than you and I comes along and says, no, we can't accept the use of AI doing this or
mhm.
that. And that's where I think things will get complicated and lawyers will arguably make a
A lot of
few
money.
a few bucks on sorting it all out. So
Yeah.
we will see.
Usually with these sorts of things, it's a reactive, action based on something that when the proverbial hit the fan. So
Mm.
something went wrong. They go, okay, yeah, we need to change that, rather than being proactive and thinking, actually, there's scope for someone, having serious problems here, or someone losing a lot of money or worse. And so, yeah, but wait and
I
see.
think I think it's down to us as professionals to make a bit of a judgment call as well on how far AI is used in a certain process, so that there's one thing getting an answer to a question, but then it still needs analysis and control over what goes into a final bit of advice or a report that's advising a client to buy or sell or not a building or anything. I think, and setting up AI parameters in IT departments and sort of restrictions on what can and can't be done. I think that's where the big firm, small firm thing comes back into the equation in bigger global companies that manage loads of properties all over the world. They will have to be a lot more organized with processes and limitations that their staff can use or not use AI. Whereas in a smaller practice like ours, it's quite easy to make a quick decision, and we can be very agile on saying to our team, well, this is what we can use it for, this is within the bounds of the RICS guidance, and this is what we can't use it for at the minute. And until we develop compliant processes to use it for certain things, we just won't use it for that or this. Whereas I can say that to a small team of half a dozen people, but when you're saying it to a team of 6,000 people, for sure there'll be people ignoring that advice or not listening.
Yeah.
And then processes need to be put in place to stop that happening on an IT level, which is a lot more complex than for the likes of myself, which is where I think being a smaller firm, we've got a different dynamic and offering that I think, we've got an advantage in a lot of respects.
Yeah. I mean, your business is intentionally lean, and you've been but still working with some institutional names, Royal London Asset Management, Derwent London, and working some highly prestigious individuals on the Wentworth estate. Why did you decide not to go down the route of trying to build the biggest firm possible? Was it a conscious decision to stay the size you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. As experienced professionals, we didn't want to be managers of big groups of people and looking at spreadsheets and costs and reporting to boards. We wanted to do what we got into the industry and what we enjoyed best, which was delivering jobs, delivering projects, speaking to clients, and delivering tangible work. Whereas when you're working in a bigger organization, having done a degree of that, you are more of a man manager, almost like being an England football manager. You're managing people, but you haven't got time to actually go out on the pitch and put the ball in the net. So we didn't want to do that, and we wanted to stay sort of client and project focused, which is what we've done. And I think it's a real shame in the industry when experienced people don't deliver any jobs, because all that experience is lost in a boardroom, and then they're not involved in jobs. And I think a lot of clients that we deal with miss the fact that an experienced individual isn't at meetings or on site looking at problems and solving them. And you tend to find that quite inexperienced individuals are on site. Instead of shadowing someone, they're actually running the job, and they don't often know what they're doing, and it can lead to problems. And I think clients get quite a lot of reassurance when we're there delivering, because they know we've got the experience to do that. And I think that's a massive advantage. And obviously it limits how many jobs we can do and how many clients we can serve. But at the same time, we're quite realistic with that and don't overpromise. So I think as long as you're not trying to overpromise, it's manageable. And I think that is sort of one of our USPs, is that it's a director stroke senior led service.
Yeah. You mentioned over the next 12 months, so you're looking to keep it steady while the environment settles. We've got a lot of political situations going on at the moment, but then hopefully after that settles, and hopefully that won't take too long, looking at potential sensible, steady growth after that. So what does sensible growth look like for your business?
I think to keep the ethos of what we're doing, the recruitment that we do make has to be targeted at the right people that we can bring along in our sort of mold and how we do things, and let them also shadow us and develop quickly into being sort of more senior advisors. And I think that would also include trying to recruit entrepreneurial characters like ourselves who've got the ambition and the longevity in the industry, but the hunger to strive to be a partner in the business and hold some equity and be part of the growth plan over a 10-20 year period, and not just for another job, for another salary increase. We're not really interested in that kind of person, because we pay fair market value or better to anyone who works with us. But the long term plan is more than just that. So if people buy into that vision and want to be part of that journey, they're the kind of entrepreneurs that we're looking for. So someone who's not just a chartered surveyor, but someone who's got a bit more going on than just being able to go out and do a survey or two. I think in the modern world, you need to have other facets to what you do other
Mm.
than just the job itself. Because to build a business, you have to be a minder, a finder, and a grinder all in one sort of person, so that you can do everything. And there's team there to help and support you at the same time. So I think, that is the utopia. Obviously, not everyone can do that. And to make a good team, I think you do need different characters and different types of skills. And for sure, that is what we're looking for. But I think any growth has to come with the team that's involved, and entrepreneurial spirit is what we promote, really.
Great. The younger generation, you mentioned about the younger players coming into the industry, because they're actively choosing it because it's more human proof than other sectors. Again, based on what's happening in the world with AI and people being worried about losing their jobs to it. Certainly, the construction industry has that demand for being the human in the loop, where AI can't really replace a lot of the jobs that are out there in that sector. Do you think that's a good move for young people to be moving into this role?
Yeah, I strongly believe that the construction industry, and when I say the construction industry, it doesn't just mean consultants. I mean tradespeople who are the lifeblood of the industry, which there has been a shortage of in this country over the years. And the foreign labour market that's come in from Europe and all over the world to support the labour supply to do the jobs is so important to the lifeblood of the industry. And I think there is a big opportunity for British citizens, youngsters, to learn a trade, whether that be electrician, plumber, bricklayer, any of these trades. To a degree, robots can't do that at the minute. In 50 years' time, I might, if I'm still alive, eat my words. But I think it is definitely, especially on site, the physical construction trades. I can't see those trades being superseded. The products that are manufactured off site, for sure, there'll be technological developments in factories where robots maybe are making all sorts of things that people do now. But
Mm.
physically installing all these things on site is something that I think will always be there. It's a bit like facades, many 100 years ago, they were built by hand with bricks and mortar. Nowadays, they're prefabricated off site and brought to site and then fixed on site. So that's a classic example of progress, and that means buildings can be built quicker and more cost effective. I think there'll always be things like that that are there. I just think the physical people on site installing them will always be part of it. And then on the consultancy side again, I think, some elements of the industry that are computerized at the minute might well be superseded by AI to a degree. Designers and drawings and people who sit there drawing things
Yeah.
with 3D scanning and all sorts of other sort of technology. I think in time that might be a skill that is eventually lost, and the architect might just be checking drawings and tweaking them rather than actually drawing them themselves. So I think there's some consultants who probably will need to adapt and develop
Yeah.
other things and other ways of being able to influence design. But it doesn't mean that they can't still influence design, and architects will always, I think, be important, but how they do it is probably the big question. Um, and likewise, even with what we do in project management and building surveying, we'll probably in 10 years' time look back and wonder why we didn't do certain things sooner, and why we used to do certain things in certain ways. But that's progress and that's
Yeah.
technology, and you know 10 years is a long time in any technology development.
Yeah.
So we will see. It'll be interesting. But I think in
Yeah.
answer to your original question, I think youngsters coming into construction, I think is a good option. It's not the only option, but I think it is a good option.
Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you for your time. I wish you all the success
Pleasure.
with the business, and I'm sure you're going to go from strength to strength. And yeah, thank you then for being a guest on the Growth Diary.
No, pleasure, Keith. Thank you for the invite. Thank you.